So welcome to part 3 of this series where I'm unpacking why academics like me sometimes get into trouble for posting videos like this on YouTube. Now you might remember, back in part 1, I shared a clip from a video I was asked to take down, and then I talked about academic freedom. In part 2, I talked about the general lack of understanding of some academics in regards to how social media actually works, and how some still believe it's a brilliant way to reach the public when actually it's not. But here's where things get interesting, because there's another layer to this, which is that some folk at university don't want us using these platforms precisely because they believe it is an effective way to engage with the public. They don't think that's what we should be doing. And that is what this episode and the next episode is all about. Arrogance, or what we might call snobbery. There is, among parts of academia, an arrogance or snobbery in relation to engaging with the public. It's caused a tension that's often referred to as town versus gown. It takes the form of some folk at university thinking the public won't understand our work, and worse, that they might misunderstand it and misuse it. And that misuse is both linked to others making money from our work, something mentioned briefly in part 2 in relation to commercialization of our work, that I'll actually pick up on that more in part 7. But there's another worry about misuse, and related more to university teaching, and that's the worry that people will use it to help students cheat. There is some reason to worry about cheating. You shouldn't make your exam papers accessible to the public if there's a chance the exam will be reused in a formal closed book exam, the kind where students only see the exam question for the first time when they're sitting in the exam room and they can't take any notes in with them. So that's a genuine worry. So don't post your exam papers on a public forum for an exam students are about to sit. That would be crazy. It's what we call undermining the academic integrity of the assessment, making it possible for people to cheat. But what about other types of assessments where students are meant to see the question ahead of time, like the traditional essay, not sat under exam conditions? Here, it gets a bit murkier. Despite the fact that these aren't formal exams, some still believe the details of these assignments should be hidden from public view, again to ensure their academic integrity. Why? Well, I think there are two main reasons. The first is a cultural hangover. Universities have historically relied heavily on formal exams, and while that's changed, the mindset hasn't. There's still this sense that assessments should be locked away until students are officially allowed to see them, and only students are allowed to see them, no one else. It's a protective reflex shaped by older systems and older ways of working that we can't shake off, that required assessments to be kept under lock and key. The second is a more recent concern, which is contract cheating. The worry was, and I say was because this has changed quite dramatically in the last couple of years, the worry was that, say, an essay question was published early, the student could send that essay question to a third party, a contract cheater, who they would pay to write the essay for them. So, excuse me. So you don't want to release your essay questions early, because that would give the student enough time to contact the contract cheater, and the contract cheater enough time to write the essay. Now, this was certainly a thing that was happening, not as widespread as some might claim, but it was happening, and there were quite a number of commercial websites that were set up offering that service to students. But now AI has changed the game. Students no longer need to pay a contract cheater. AI can do it for free and in an instant. So withholding assessments until the last minute isn't safeguarding things. It's not that safeguard that it once was. Cheating now just takes seconds, not days. So if we're serious about protecting academic integrity, we need to rethink things. But we actually needed to rethink things well before AI came along. Rethink this notion that we have to keep our assessments under lock and key. Restricting student access to assessments until just before they sit them has actually been a major driver of cheating. I saw this firsthand in a leadership role I was in, where I had to investigate student cheating. Now, if students only see the assessment a few weeks before it's due, they have less time to do the assessment, less time to prepare. And research shows that time pressure is a key reason students cheat. They rationalize it like this: if I had more time, I'd do well, so I'll find another way to get the grade I deserve. There's also the issue of transparency. If students know in advance what the assessment is, they can make an informed choice about whether to enroll in a unit or not. Maybe it's an assessment they know that they don't do well on, so they'll take a different unit with assessments that they're better at. I'm not good at exams, so I'll avoid exams. Or essays, I like essays, so I'll go for that unit that has essays. And sometimes students can choose their units when they're electives. So it might help there. And that takes away that compulsion to cheat, because it's an assessment you like. And it's not just current students. Prospective students, particularly those from non-traditional backgrounds, can benefit from seeing how we assess if we make this stuff public. Many non-traditional students are put off by the assumption that university means they're going to have to sit all of these formal exams, and they did terrible in their exams when they were at school. Well, formal exams might not be happening in that university that you're applying for. And if we, or seldom, or maybe they don't rely on formal exams. So they use other forms of assessments. Might be some really interesting, exciting ways of assessing. So if we make our assessments visible, we show all of that, so students come forewarned about the type of assessments they're going to sit. And maybe they come to us because they want to take these types of assessment. Okay, I won't get carried away. So the key point is that instead of locking assessments away, opening them up can help shift people's perceptions, and it can help support prospective students making informed decisions and reduce that pressure that leads some of them to cheat. There's another issue with keeping assessments locked up and away from the public. It limits who can review them. If there's an error in the assessment task, it's far better to catch it before students begin the task. The earlier and wider the review of the assessment, the better. The more eyes on it means that you're more likely to get people spotting the errors, and that improves the academic integrity of the assessment. It also gives more students time to prepare properly and reducing that pressure to cheat. But integrity isn't just about error checking. That integrity, academic integrity, it's also about designing assessments that students see value in, tasks that they want to do, tasks that they can take ownership of and carry into the world. When students feel the work is real and meaningful, it's not just about the grade they receive, but the work they've produced, then they're more likely to want to engage with it. It's like, here's the work I did rather than here's the grade I got. And that's the essence of what's called authentic assessment, evaluating the skills and knowledge people actually need and want through tasks that resemble real-world challenges. And the best way to do that, to get our assessments to be authentic, is to put those assessments out into the world. Let the public see them. That transparency helps shift perceptions showing that university assessment isn't just about formal exams anymore. There's lots of different and potentially quite interesting ways that we assess our students in relation to the skills that we want them to have. Now, some argue that all of this is the job of professional accreditation bodies. But there are two problems with that. First, those bodies are often made up of academics or university-trained professionals and may not reflect the views of people who work outside of the sector. Second, many students go on to careers beyond the scope of their degree's accrediting body. Take psychology. While the degree is accredited by the profession of psychology, graduates often move into education, marketing, social work, policy, business, a whole range of different areas of work that psychology doesn't accredit. Now, that's why I think our teaching and assessment materials should be public, and that's why I make my teaching materials public and try to make my assessment materials public. When people from diverse backgrounds and diverse fields can see what we're asking our students to do, they can tell us whether it reflects the realities of their work and their lives. Imagine a patient visiting a psychologist. If they could see the criteria used to assess that psychologist's skills, it might give them greater confidence in asking for that psychologist's help. Even better, if those same patients, or anyone served by a profession, spot gaps in how future professionals are being trained and assessed, they can speak up about it and complain about it. And that's the kind of feedback loop we need to keep our work relevant and our professions honest. But the thing is, some academics don't think public feedback will be that useful. And that assumption is holding us back. And that's what I want to talk to you about in part 4. So till then, ta-da.